Maryland's streets have become home for thousands, where survival is brutal. People sleep on cold footpaths, huddled under thin blankets, hoping to make it through the night. Hunger forces many to dig through trash, searching for discarded meals, while others rely on overcrowded soup kitchens that run out of food too soon. Addiction takes hold as an escape. Some turn to drugs, numbing the pain of rejection and cold. In hidden alleyways, people battle despair, trapped in a cycle they never chose. For them, the streets aren't just a temporary struggle, they're a fight for survival. And yet most walk past, never stopping, never seeing. The crisis is growing. The question is, how much worse will it get before Maryland takes action? Welcome to Globe Path Travel Documentary Maryland, a state of rich history and thriving cities. But behind the landmarks and business districts, a silent crisis is taking over. In 2025, homelessness has exploded, turning footpaths into shelters, alleys into last refuges, and discarded scraps into survival meals. Thousands sleep on cold pavements, battling hunger, addiction, and the fear of what tomorrow will bring. How did this happen? What are the real causes? And most importantly, what can be done? Join us as we uncover the raw truth behind Maryland's homelessness epidemic, hear heartbreaking stories from those living it, and explore solutions that could change lives. This is more than just a documentary. It's a call for awareness, a demand for change. Before we dive in, make sure to subscribe to Globe Path and hit the bell icon to stay updated on stories that matter. Let's shine a light on the unseen and bring conversations that can drive impact. The current state of homelessness in Maryland, a growing crisis. Maryland, known for its thriving urban centers and economic opportunities, is now facing a devastating challenge: homelessness at an unprecedented scale. Once a problem that seemed confined to specific areas, it has now spread across the state, affecting people from all walks of life. Families, veterans, children, and individuals with nowhere left to turn are being forced onto the streets as shelters struggle to accommodate the rising numbers, thousands forced to sleep on street. Every night, the sidewalks, alleyways, and park benches of Maryland turn into makeshift beds for those who have nowhere else to go. Some wrap themselves in old blankets, desperately trying to fight off the cold. Others huddle together beneath highway overpasses, seeking shelter from the harsh elements. During extreme weather, whether scorching heat or freezing cold, many suffer from dehydration, frostbite, or illness with no access to medical care. Overcrowded shelters, nowhere to turn. Maryland's emergency shelters are running beyond capacity, forcing many to seek refuge in unsafe conditions. Those lucky enough to find a spot often face overcrowding, with hundreds crammed into spaces meant for far fewer. Limited resources mean food shortages, inadequate hygiene facilities, and little access to proper medical assistance. Many shelters have long waiting lists, leaving people with no option but to sleep outdoors, exposed to the dangers of violence, theft, and health risks. Families displaced, children without homes. Homelessness isn't just affecting single individuals, it's tearing families apart. Parents with young children are being forced into homelessness due to rising rent prices, unemployment, and financial instability. Kids are sleeping in cars, abandoned buildings, or moving from shelter to shelter, with their education and well-being at severe risk. Schools struggle to support homeless students, who often lack the basic necessities to focus on their studies, a daily struggle for food and survival. For those living on the streets, securing a meal is an everyday battle. Many rely on soup kitchens and food banks, but with an increasing homeless population, these resources are stretched thin. Some search through garbage bins outside restaurants, hoping to find discarded leftovers before they're thrown away. Others rely on small acts of kindness, strangers handing out food or community initiatives providing meals. Hunger and malnutrition are rampant, leaving individuals weak and vulnerable to illness. The hidden struggles. Addiction and mental health. With little support available, many homeless individuals turn to drugs or alcohol as a way to escape their pain. Addiction becomes both a coping mechanism and a trap, making it harder for people to reintegrate into society. Mental health issues are widespread, with individuals suffering from depression, anxiety, PTSD, and other disorders without access to proper medical care. The lack of treatment options pushes people deeper into homelessness, creating a cycle that is incredibly difficult to break, ignored and forgotten. The public's response. Despite the growing crisis, many people walk past Maryland's homeless population without acknowledging their struggle. Some avoid eye contact, others cross the street, unwilling to confront the reality unfolding before them. With homelessness now affecting thousands across the state, the question remains, how much worse will it get before action is taken? The brutal reality of survival. Life on the streets. Homelessness is not just about losing a home, it's about losing stability, dignity, and access to the most basic human necessities. Every day is a fight for survival, where even the smallest comforts, food, water, shelter, and safety, become nearly impossible to secure. Those living on the streets experience a reality that many can't even imagine, trapped in an unforgiving cycle of hardship, sleeping on sidewalks, under bridges, and in abandoned buildings. For thousands, the cold pavement is their bed. With no access to proper shelter, people curl up on sidewalks, under bridges, in parks, or inside abandoned buildings, wherever they can find a semblance of protection from the elements. During winter, temperatures drop dangerously low, increasing the risk of hypothermia and frostbite. Many huddle in dirty blankets, stuffing newspapers into their clothes for insulation, trying to fight off the bitter cold. But even summer offers no relief. The blistering heat makes survival even more punishing, with dehydration becoming a real threat. Without access to clean water or cooling shelters, many collapse from exhaustion, their bodies unable to withstand the relentless heat. The never-ending fight for food hunger is an everyday battle for the homeless. Soup kitchens and food banks provide some relief, but supplies are limited and demand far outweighs availability. People line up for hours hoping to get a meal, but often, there simply isn't enough food for everyone. When resources run out, desperation sets in. Many search through trash bins behind restaurants, hoping to find discarded meals before they're thrown away. Others beg outside grocery stores, counting on small acts of kindness from strangers. Some rely on scraps handed out by volunteers or leftover meals from shelters that are constantly overwhelmed. Malnutrition is rampant. Without access to balanced nutrition, the body weakens over time, leading to long-term health problems. Lack of food affects mental clarity, making it harder for individuals to make decisions or find solutions to escape their situation. No access to clean water, no hygiene, no dignity. Clean water and proper hygiene are luxuries for the homeless. Public bathrooms are hard to access, and many go weeks without a proper shower. The stench of sweat, dirt, and unwashed clothes becomes unavoidable, leading to infections and skin diseases. Many rely on gas station sinks or small streams to clean themselves, but these are far from sanitary. Some use wet wipes or bottled water to freshen up, while others have no choice but to accept their condition. For women, hygiene challenges are even worse, with no access to menstrual products or clean facilities, forcing them to endure discomfort with no solutions. Health crisis. Illness spreads unchecked. Without access to medical care, even the smallest infections can become life-threatening. Colds turn into pneumonia, untreated wounds become infected, and chronic illnesses go completely ignored. Many homeless individuals suffer from respiratory issues, malnutrition-related diseases, and untreated injuries that worsen over time. Hospitals require identification and insurance, two things most homeless individuals lack. Emergency rooms are often the only option, but treatment is limited and follow-up care is non-existent. Many rely on over-the-counter medications found in dumpsters or simply wait until the pain becomes unbearable. The grip of addiction, a cycle impossible to escape. With no support, no hope, and no stability, addiction takes hold of many homeless individuals. Drugs and alcohol become a temporary escape, numbing hunger, pain, and the harsh realities of survival. Many turn to substance use simply to forget their suffering, even if just for a few hours. In dark alleyways and abandoned structures, people inject, smoke, and drink, trapped in an addiction they can't afford yet can't escape. Without rehabilitation programs or medical intervention, many fall deeper into dependency, making their chances of recovery even slimmer. Abuse, theft, and the constant fear for safety. Life on the streets is dangerous. Vulnerable individuals, especially women and elderly homeless people, are frequent targets of violence. Assault, robbery, and exploitation are common, with no authorities to provide protection. Those living in tents or makeshift shelters risk having their few belongings stolen, forcing them to start over again with nothing. At night, people sleep with one eye open, knowing any moment could bring danger. Some gather in groups for safety, while others take turns staying awake to guard their few possessions. Many have been victims of repeated violence with no way to report crimes or seek justice, a life no one sees, society's silent crisis. Despite the scale of the issue, the homeless are often invisible to society. People walk past them daily, avoiding eye contact, ignoring their existence. Even when someone collapses from hunger or sickness, it's not uncommon for passers-by to ignore them, treating them as if they were no more than a shadow on the pavement. For those trapped in this reality, survival isn't just about finding food or shelter. It's about fighting against a world that refuses to see them. The crisis continues to grow, and the suffering deepens. The question is, how much worse will it get before Maryland takes action? Root causes of homelessness in Maryland. Maryland's homelessness crisis is not just an unfortunate circumstance. It is the result of deep systemic failures that have pushed thousands into an existence of uncertainty, poverty, and survival. At the heart of the issue is the housing market, which has become unreachable for many. Rent prices have skyrocketed in the past few years, forcing individuals and families out of their homes simply because they can no longer afford to live in the city they once called home. Even those with stable jobs struggle to pay rent, as wages have failed to keep pace with inflation, creating a financial gap that leaves many on the streets. Beyond the economic struggles, job insecurity and displacement have played a massive role in the rise of homelessness. Thousands have lost their jobs due to economic downturns, company layoffs, and automation replacing human labor. Without a consistent income, people fall behind on payments, lose their housing, and eventually find themselves sleeping in their cars, shelters, or directly on the pavement. Some once had careers, families, and financial security, but a single setback, a medical emergency, an unexpected job loss, or an economic shift was enough to take it all away. For many, homelessness is not just a financial crisis, but a health crisis. Mental illness and addiction have played a major role in pushing people onto the streets. Those suffering from depression, schizophrenia, PTSD, or anxiety often go without treatment due to the lack of affordable healthcare options, leaving them vulnerable to instability. Addiction follows closely behind, with drugs and alcohol becoming both a temporary escape and a lasting trap. The lack of accessible rehabilitation programs means many are left to fend for themselves, unable to seek help, even if they want to break free from addiction. Adding to this crisis is the government's failure to act decisively. While shelters exist, they are severely overcrowded and underfunded, leaving thousands without a place to stay. Instead of prioritizing long-term housing solutions, Maryland has focused on temporary fixes that barely scratch the surface of the problem. Financial aid programs are limited and difficult to access, making it almost impossible for people to climb out of homelessness once they fall into it. Many policies are reactive rather than proactive, treating homelessness as an isolated issue instead of addressing the root causes that continue to push more people into despair. Maryland's homeless crisis is a symptom of a broken system, one where survival depends not on effort or determination, but on whether society has given an individual the tools to succeed. As the cost of living rises, jobs become scarce, addiction remains untreated, and government response fails. More people will continue to fall through the cracks. The question isn't just how Maryland got here, it's how much worse things will get before real change happens. Government response. A failing system? Maryland's government has acknowledged the growing homelessness crisis, yet its response has been painfully inadequate. Despite promises of relief programs, shelters, food assistance, and housing initiatives, the reality on the ground remains bleak. Emergency shelters, often overcrowded and underfunded, reach capacity within hours, turning away desperate individuals who have nowhere else to go. The few food distribution centers available struggle to meet demand, often running out before everyone is served, leaving many to scavenge for scraps or rely on strangers' kindness for their next meal. Policy discussions continue, but little action follows. Politicians and officials debate funding and legislation, yet real solutions seem elusive. While some efforts aim to provide temporary relief, they fail to address the deeper, systemic causes of homelessness: skyrocketing rent, economic instability, and lack of mental health support. Instead of long-term housing reforms, the government relies on reactive measures, treating homelessness as a short-term emergency rather than an ongoing humanitarian crisis. Meanwhile, thousands continue to suffer on the streets, sleeping on frozen sidewalks, battling hunger, addiction, and illness with no hope of change. The system is failing those who need it most, leaving them stranded in a cycle of survival with no clear way out. Without urgent intervention, the crisis will only deepen, and Maryland's streets will continue to be lined with forgotten lives, waiting for a solution that never comes. Voices from the streets. The harsh reality. Homelessness is often misunderstood. Many assume that those living on the streets made poor choices or lacked ambition, but the truth is far more devastating. Most homeless individuals once had stable lives, jobs, homes, families, and dreams. Now, survival is their only focus. Take John, a former truck driver who spent years on the road, providing for his family. One day, a sudden medical emergency struck, hospital bills piled up, insurance failed him, and in just months, his financial security crumbled. Unable to work, he lost his home. Now, he sleeps under a bridge, wondering how his life unraveled so fast. Then there's Sarah, a young mother who does everything she can to keep her child safe. After fleeing an abusive relationship, she found herself homeless, forced to hide in abandoned buildings each night. She gathers scraps from local stores, making sure her child eats before she does. With nowhere to turn and shelters at capacity, she constantly fears for their safety. And Mark, a former construction worker who built homes for others, but now has none himself. The industry slowed, jobs vanished, and soon he was sleeping on park benches. Every morning, he wakes up sore, exhausted, and unsure where his next meal will come from. Begging for work feels humiliating, but with businesses unwilling to hire someone without a permanent address, his options are few. Their stories expose the harsh reality: homelessness is not a choice. It is the consequence of a failing system. Skyrocketing rent, job losses, lack of mental health care, and weak government support have forced thousands into situations they never imagined. The streets are filled with people who once had dreams, careers, and stability. Now, they are fighting to survive, hoping someone will finally see them. Maryland versus other major cities, falling behind in the fight against homelessness. Homelessness is a growing crisis across the United States, but Maryland's situation is becoming particularly alarming. Compared to cities like Los Angeles and New York, both known for their massive homeless populations, Maryland is experiencing a rapid surge in homelessness with fewer effective policies in place to combat the issue. In Los Angeles and New York, city governments have recognized homelessness as a long-term problem, requiring structured interventions. Housing First initiatives, where individuals are given stable housing before being required to meet employment or treatment criteria, have helped reduce the number of unsheltered homeless people in those areas. These cities, despite their own struggles, have invested in permanent housing programs, mental health services, and addiction recovery facilities to provide sustainable solutions rather than just short-term relief. Maryland, however, remains stuck in a cycle of reactive measures. Shelters are overwhelmed, food programs lack funding, and financial assistance is nearly impossible to access for those who need it most. Instead of prioritizing long-term housing solutions, Maryland's approach has largely consisted of temporary relief efforts. Emergency shelters that fill up within hours, food aid programs that run out before everyone is served, and policy discussions that continue with little action. If this trend continues, Maryland risks becoming one of the worst-hit regions for homelessness in America. Without strategic intervention, expanding affordable housing, strengthening mental health programs, and developing sustainable job opportunities, the crisis will only deepen, leaving thousands more stranded on the streets with no way out. The state has reached a critical point. The choice is clear. Either invest in lasting change now or face a future where homelessness becomes an irreversible epidemic. Long-term solutions. Is there hope? Maryland's homelessness crisis is reaching a tipping point, but experts agree that real change is possible if the right actions are taken. Short-term relief efforts, such as emergency shelters and food programs, have helped some, but they don't solve the root problem. Without bold, long-term strategies, homelessness will continue to rise. However, several solutions could offer a way out if implemented effectively. Affordable housing programs, ending the cycle of displacement. The most effective way to reduce homelessness is to prioritize housing first policies, placing individuals in stable living conditions before expecting them to secure jobs or seek treatment. Cities that have adopted this approach have seen a dramatic decrease in homelessness. Maryland must invest in low-income housing projects, enforce rent control measures, and create subsidies for those at risk of eviction. Expanding affordable housing availability will provide a pathway for individuals to rebuild their lives without constantly battling unstable shelter conditions. Mental health and addiction. Treatment. For many homeless individuals, the battle is not just financial, it's psychological and physiological. Mental illness, trauma, and addiction contribute heavily to the crisis. Yet Maryland's healthcare system lacks accessible treatment options. Expanding free mental health clinics, substance abuse rehabilitation centers, and mobile outreach programs would prevent countless individuals from falling into long-term homelessness. The goal should be care, not criminalization, providing people with the support they need rather than leaving them to suffer on the streets. Employment assistance, restoring stability. Many homeless individuals want to work, but finding employment is nearly impossible without an address, proper clothing, or identification. Maryland needs job training programs specifically tailored to homeless populations, helping them regain financial independence. Offering rehabilitation through apprenticeships, vocational training, and direct hiring initiatives could pave the way for stability, ensuring people don't just survive, but thrive. Businesses and government agencies must actively partner to create employment opportunities rather than leaving individuals trapped in a cycle of poverty. Community-led initiatives, grassroots action for change. While government intervention is crucial, local communities play an equally important role. Grassroots organizations, faith-based groups, and volunteer-driven programs have already been instrumental in supporting Maryland's homeless population. But they need more funding, visibility, and cooperation from city officials. Investing in food distribution programs, mobile medical aid, mentorship programs, and public outreach initiatives will allow communities to work together to bring real change. When local residents take action, awareness spreads, resources multiply, and more lives can be saved. The time for change is now. Maryland's homelessness crisis will only worsen without urgent action. If the state continues relying on reactive policies rather than investing in long-term solutions, thousands more will find themselves trapped in a cycle of survival. The solutions exist. The expertise is available. The real question is, will Maryland act before it's too late? Thank you for watching this powerful documentary on Maryland's homelessness crisis. This issue isn't just a distant problem. It's happening right now, in plain sight. The more we talk about it, the closer we get to finding real solutions. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to subscribe to Globe Path and turn on notifications so you never miss important stories like this. Your thoughts matter. Leave a comment below. What do you think Maryland should do to tackle this growing crisis? Let's keep this conversation going and work toward meaningful change. Stay informed. Stay engaged. See you in the next documentary.